I am. So I am going to beg off of my duties here. Let me introduce myself. I'm Paul Panish. I'm the chair of the Barrington Energy Committee, and I've sort of taken the lead on the Barrington Community Power Committee. So I am the one who, should you have questions and come to the town, you'll probably be directed to me. I would recommend that you call the phone number for the Community Power Coalition instead, because they will probably know more than I do. But either way, our goal is to answer any questions that you may have. I had a fairly nasty car crash this weekend, and I'm still in a bit of a fog about it. So let me introduce Henry Herndon of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. I am going to let him basically take over the presentation that we have up here, and we'll do a joint job of answering questions. And I guess I'd like to get a sense of the crowd out here. This is actually a few more people than we've had at the public hearings, but I had hoped it would be a bit larger than this. But would you prefer that we do a presentation of basically what was in the letter that most of you people have seen already, or should we just move straight into answering questions?
And perhaps there's a middle ground where I could tee things up, and if anyone wants to interrupt me at any point in time with questions, feel free to raise your hand and interrupt, and that would work as well.
Presentation, sense of the group, shout out.
well, I'm happy to start, and then please jump in as we go. And just to sort of tee this up, so I work for Community Power Coalition New Hampshire. This is a nonprofit that was created by New Hampshire cities and towns after the legislature in Concord put together the Community Power Act several years ago to enable these programs. We're here because Barrington Community Power is launching service. This is a program that was adopted at town meeting in Barrington, and the objectives of the program are to lower electric rates and to give customers more energy choices and to give cities and towns more local control over some of their energy decisions. So I'll talk about what the program means. Did you all receive a letter in the mail? So that's good. There's some good information there. There's information on the website, and I can talk through some more of the details. So just to start out at a summary level, this is a program that allows the town of Barrington to partner with other communities and to bulk purchase electricity on behalf of residents and businesses in an effort to achieve an economy of scale and to drive down electricity supply rates. Importantly, Eversource is always going to own the distribution grid. They're always going to deliver that electricity to the customers. They're going to keep the poles and wires up and running and be responsible for reliability, which they're good at. But the supply or the generation or the source of that power is now something that can be shopped for by Barrington Community Power, and that can give you, the residents, like one more option or a few more options in your energy choices. We can move to the next slide. So what sort of some of the key details are: this program is going to launch service in June, and we're in a notification period that's required under the state law, where there's a 30-day notice. Everyone's received their letter. And every customer has at least until the end of May 27th, to opt into the program, opt out of the program, choose a different power option if they would choose to do that. And then in June, come the date in June that Eversource reads your meter to send you your monthly electric bill, customers who take no action will be automatically enrolled into Barrington Community Power at a discounted electricity rate.
With a few exceptions.
Why would that be? Why would you automatically enroll people?
You just have to come up to the microphone. Otherwise, no, it's okay.
Well, he said ask questions.
No, and that's perfect. You can do that, but just come up here because it'll be the folks at home.
Okay.
Recording won't hear you if you don't.
Okay.
That's all.
Want to come now?
If that, yeah.
I'm comfortable. Yeah, sure.
The other thing is.
Sorry, you have to go to the microphone.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to state something. These are not user friendly for us. I can't read that board or that board because it's facing that way. I can't see that way. So I'm just letting you know that for us back here, we can't see.
Would it be acceptable for you to sit close?
Well, I can, but other people in the back can't possibly see that. Maybe over there they could see that one, but this one's flat. I'm just trying to make it so you understand that if that was turned that way, people there would see it. So, okay, so yeah, I was just curious in the letter that a lot of people will toss this in the trash or the fire or do nothing, and you're automatically enrolling them into something that they didn't enroll themselves. And I'm just wondering how that could possibly be. Like anything else in life, if we don't sign up for it, we may or may not want it. And I get it, you can opt out, but a lot of people won't do anything.
So let me answer that.
Okay.
We have made an incredible effort to make the public aware of this. We had 2 public hearings about this. The town did not vote to fund our committee, so we could not do a mailing because we did not have funds. I spent days at the transfer station handing out hundreds of leaflets about the public hearings, which were even more poorly attended than this. So the notifications that you did get were from the town about the warrant articles. You know, everyone is warrant articles. And the information was in there for people to follow up. And the public did vote overwhelmingly. It was the most popular warrant article on the ballot to do exactly what you said, to support that the default power provider would be Barrington Community Power. So we tried to make you aware.
And I'm aware through the letter. But I'm just stating a lot of people won't do anything, and all of a sudden they're going to get a bill and realize they're enrolled in something that they themselves did not enroll in. That's the only issue I have. If I called you and said, hey, I'd like to sign you up for this, and you said, let me think about it, and then all of a sudden I enrolled you anyways, you wouldn't be happy. And
but
that's the point I'm just trying to make.
You didn't realize that you were enrolled into Eversource either, and it's the same thing.
I knew that I was enrolled when I called them up and asked them to provide me power. So I just wanted to bring up that point. I'm not trying to battle with you. I'm just trying to say that a lot of people would not be happy. It'd be an easier way than pushing it to somebody rather than saying, if you call and opt out, you don't have to be a part of it. It's not as polite as saying, hey, if you want into this, just call. That's all I'm saying, but thank you.
I think it's a valid perspective, and anyone you talk to, just make sure they understand this is voluntary. There's a number of ways they can choose to participate or not participate, but points well taken.
I can see that a lot better. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the feedback.
So just to continue along with this, the only thing that's going to change from a customer's perspective is in June, if you take no action and you have Eversource as your supplier, you'd be enrolled in Barrington Community Power at that discounted rate, and then keep an eye on your bill for the month of, when the bill comes out in July for the month of June, that's when you would see the only change on your bill would be where previously it has said Eversource Energy Service or Eversource Default Energy Supply. That would now read Barrington Community Power. That's essentially the difference the customer would see. Anytime after the month of June, when the launch occurs, any customer on a monthly basis can come in or out of the program by calling a phone number or going to communitypowernh.gov or some other options. So this is showing the rate offerings. There is a discounted rate for this program. The savings are somewhat marginal for Eversource during this period, but historically we've seen a range from the current it's a few dollars a month perhaps. Prior rate periods, we've seen savings of $20, perhaps up to $40 a month for customers. If you look at this chart, the red line is showing community power rates as compared to the utility rates in the blue lines. So there's been considerable savings for customers in other communities that have had these programs for a period of time. Folks should be aware that utilities change their electric rates on a 6-month schedule. So typically it's a August through January and February through July is when utility supply rates change. And Community Power has the flexibility to adjust rates as those utility rates change in an effort to maintain the discount, as you can sort of see in this historical chart. But for anyone who's curious or is interested in monitoring that, again, communitypowernh.gov will always have the rate comparisons that will always be noticed at least 30 days in advance. Commercial customers, I'm not sure if anybody here is a commercial energy customer. But if you know anyone who's a commercial customer, there's some good savings there. It's about 30, maybe 33% savings. Currently, commercial customers are a little bit different. They have rates that adjust on a monthly basis, and they can participate, and there's some good benefit there as well.
And the coalition is working on fixed rates for contract periods. They'll start out at a year, and we expect those will start being announced in the next few months, right?
That's right. So that could help for municipal customers that are interested in annual budgeting and things like that. This is just showing the bill. So if you take a look at your electric bill, you'll notice there's the delivery portion. Again, that's the Eversource portion of the bill that will always remain for the poles and wires and for Eversource's business. And what will be affected by this is the supply side of the bill. In terms of the objectives of the program, we talked about rate stability and lowering rates for customers. This menu of options. So some customers might want to choose 50% or 100% renewable energy product. That is provided through the program for those that would choose to opt into that. And in improving sort of the local control, we're now the town of Barrington, along with 60 or so other towns in the state that have adopted or are in process of adopting these programs, are participating through our nonprofit and have more of a say in their energy decision making and development of energy projects.
There's something I'd like to add here in terms of the clean or the options that are available, whether they're clean energy or otherwise. There are a number of options that the coalition is hoping to introduce. You've probably heard about time of day rates and various programs like that. That is something that the coalition probably will be phasing in various communities in the not too distant future. Unfortunately, in Eversource communities, we're at a disadvantage because of some of the decisions that were made in prior equipment purchasing. So Eversource replaced meters not too long ago. Unfortunately, because they're an investor-owned utility, to minimize the cost and optimize the profits to the investors, they went with a very low grade of meters, which are not capable of doing that. So the coalition will be phasing in various options. It's unclear when Barrington will be able to take part in some of those options because of decisions that have been made in the past. But we will be working to try and phase those in as time goes by as well. Did you have anything to add to that?
I think it's well said.
This is us.
Yeah, so the town of Barrington is a member of Community Power Coalition New Hampshire. I'm the director of member services for this organization. We're a nonprofit. Barrington is one of about 60 cities or towns that make up the membership of the nonprofit. Paul Panish and Dan Federico are member representatives to our organization to participate in the governance of the nonprofit. Our board of directors is elected by the members. So Paul attended our annual meeting in April of this year, where the collective 60 or so members elected a board from among them. So our board is made up of folks from select boards, from city councils, from local energy committees from around the state that sit on the board and make all the decisions about the hiring of the CEO, the budget, the finances of the organization. So we really are created to serve the cities and towns that are our members, and you can sort of see the spread of the programs across the state. Those communities in green and blue are up and running, like Barrington will be in June, where they've launched a program, and the communities in red are in a planning phase, where maybe they're going through a town meeting approval or the like. Certain customers are not going to be affected by this program. Does anybody already shop with another third-party electric provider, perhaps? So you do have that option. There's a website. If you were to Google New Hampshire Department of Energy electric rates, you could bring you to a website where you can shop for a competitive list of energy options. Some folks do this. If you do, or if you know anybody who does that, you would not be affected by this program because you've already chosen to purchase power from someone other than Eversource, other than the default. So those customers wouldn't be affected. Customers with solar panels on their roof, net metering customers, at present, they are not impacted in any way by this program. They're not enrolled.
Just to be clear, when we say not affected, it means you won't be automatically enrolled.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have solar? So you would not be enrolled. However, that's actually perhaps a bug, not a feature. So the rules and regulations really direct that folks who have solar on the roof should and can participate in these programs. And you can think of anyone in town who's installed a solar array as a little mini power plant, a generator that would be supplying electricity to Barrington Community Power, and pending resolution to technical issues and regulatory challenges with utilities, that your solar panels, any net export, any excess power you produce on a monthly basis, we would credit you for that. We would essentially purchase that power from you as part of the portfolio. That is pending resolution with Eversource on some regulatory details. So for now, you're not affected in any way, and in the future, you may be able to benefit from participating.
I'll be a little more strident about that. The laws and regulations state that the utilities are required to support this. So the utilities, Eversource in particular, is in violation of the law. They are required to compensate the power that you produce. However, because they have been somewhat technically backwards, they cannot do so at the moment. This is being worked on. It's a regulatory process. These take time, but we expect that in the not too distant future, this will be resolved. And at that point, would people who are power generators have to opt in, or would it wouldn't be would it be automatic?
I don't know that there's resolution on that as of yet. I think that it could be a new noticing where those customers would receive a mailing to be enrolled, and then they would receive credit for their excess power from Barrington Community Power as one of the suppliers of power to that program.
So with the solar on the roof, and I also own an electric car, and I have a Tesla Powerwall. So for the future, I would be interested in the possibility to be also kind of a local storage facility, but that would mean you would have to have the different rates over different times of the day, depending on what the demand is, and then also the compensation in that direction. Then that would make sense, and it would make sense for the local power system because you can balance out the clean power that is produced at times when it's not needed.
Well, interestingly, because of the facilities that are built into the Powerwall and some of the other products that are being generated, these are some of the program options that the coalition will be looking into providing to customers in the future. And that will not be dependent on the kind of meter you have. There are other software provisions and monitoring provisions that may be able to provide those facilities. But that's a ways off yet.
And just to add to that, I agree with all of that, and very well said. So you're exactly right. There is the potential to have local resources, local solar generators, folks who have electric vehicles, folks who have batteries in their households, and to really use those as resources for the grid as a whole, to charge up your battery during the nighttime when there's low demand and low cost, to dispatch that power during the day during high demand, high cost times, to be compensated for that for providing power to the grid. These are all the kinds of things that, again, over the longer term, community power and partnerships with utilities can enable that. And a number of the folks who are leading Community Power Coalition are working towards that through some regulatory proceedings. So, well said. I just wanted to, again, note, back on this previous slide, so there's a phone number, 1-866-603-POWR. That's a customer service center. If you would like to opt in or out or ask any questions, they're a great resource. You can also email info@communitypowernh.gov or visit communitypowernh.gov. And all you'll need is your utility account number, which is on your bill. No, I think we talked about net metering, and then I think we mentioned these, but just, again, this is a voluntary program. Any month, any time in the future, anyone can come and go as they please. There's no tax impact as it is funded through the payment on the electric bill. So it's self-funded. And I think we mentioned these other key points, so I'm happy to entertain other questions or have further discussion.
For those folks participating online, if you have questions, you can just raise your hand if you're participating in the Teams program, and we'll call on you. If you're on the phone, you might have to press *6 to unmute yourself, and then just speak up during a break and let us know you'd like to make a comment.
So, I mean, actually, I noticed what the prior gentleman said. It's the main reason I came, because I wanted to find out if I was going to be put into the system. The few questions I have. What was the background of saying that this coalition was needed? Because evidently the company wasn't doing its job properly, or I'm new to the area, so I have no experience with Eversource other than the last year. And they seem to be doing a good job as far as I'm concerned. Mainly when I turn on the lights go on, and when there's a storm, they kind of fix it pretty fast. So, A, what is the problem? And two, how confident are you that you could go into the market and buy, will the lights go on? Do you guys know what you're doing? Is there a track record of this? Eversource, that's their business. They've been doing it for a long time. So that's the main thing. And the savings, I kind of did a quick thing of it would, I might have misread it, but I think it would save me like about 74 cents a month under that first thing. So it's immaterial. So I really would like you guys to address reliability, what track record you have, and how is there a staff that's going to go into the market, train people who do this, or is this something that, like a startup that we're going to have unreliable energy?
I'll let Henry handle most of this, but one clear distinction that I want you to understand is Eversource is still responsible for delivery of power. Most of the things that you were just talking about deal with delivery, not with purchase and provision. So that's an important distinction, but I'll let Henry handle.
But if you don't buy the supply, then they won't have anything to deliver.
I'll let you handle
it. So I think all valid questions, and I'll try to take them each at a time. So there's sort of the history and the justification. Maybe I can talk a little bit about that. There's our qualifications and staffing, and there's a reliability perhaps as well. So I would encourage you to take a look at the enabling legislation. It's RSA 53E. And that there's a purpose statement in there that discusses empowering local communities to adopt local resources and take into consideration their local objectives for innovative energy solutions and to lower costs. I'm paraphrasing, but I think there's good language really in the purpose statement of RSA 53E that talks about the legislative intent, focusing on local control, innovation, cost effectiveness, and also, I think, expanding competition in the market. And a little bit of the history. So this law was, it's been on the books for some time, but it was modified in 2019 and 2021 based on some of the successes that other states have seen in creating benefits for their communities. That modification really enabled the law to work for the state, and a number of cities and towns have now pursued it and implemented it. In launching programs, over sort of the 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 period of the past several years, these cities and towns initially formed a work group. There were a number of them. Lebanon, Nashua, Cheshire County was involved, some other towns that were really thinking about this legislation. And they formed a work group to look at how do these programs work in Massachusetts, New York, California, Ohio, other states, and try to apply best practices. And in doing that assessment, they came to the conclusion that the best practice was, rather than each city and town trying to implement unilaterally, to share services and to create a shared nonprofit where they could have an economy of scale and have one set of expert staff that would then be available to Barrington and Nashua and Concord and Lebanon and whoever else, as opposed to each one trying to figure it out on their own. So our organization, we're that nonprofit. Currently, we serve about 120,000 electric customers. Our annual revenue this year is about $80 million. And the vast majority of that is just purchasing power to supply to those 120,000 electric customers. There is an overhead. We have a small staff team of 6 staff. Our CEO, Brian Calnan, he was previously the vice president of New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, which is another nonprofit utility in the state. And he's got a long career and history in public power and in purchasing electricity for utility companies. Beyond our core internal staff, there are service providers. So we have a contact center. We have folks who advise on wholesale electricity, energy portfolio management. So we manage a portfolio of energy contracts. We have legal, accounting, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a little bit about perhaps our qualifications and the staff behind this. Just to echo what Paul said about reliability. So anything that's related to the lights turning on and getting the poles up and running after an outage, that's still Eversource's responsibility. We're really a partner with Eversource. They don't lose out on the who's managing the power portfolio and who's shopping for power. They're indifferent to that, and I think we have a sort of a collaborative relationship. I don't know. I hope that answers some of your concerns, but I think they're good questions.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
If I could just add, I attended a number of the committee meetings, being an alternate member from Barrington, and they have a number of committees that assess things like risks and purchasing, and it's done in a very small d democratic way in the sense that these experts and volunteers are in the committees, and there's a lot of checks and balances on a lot of the decisions that are made. And one of the leaders is Clifton Below, who was a former public utilities commissioner in the state. He's a former state senator, and basically a policy wonk in terms of all of the purchasing of the electric service. And he's a significant leader in the coalition. And the meetings are open to the public. You can go to them online. And if you go to one of those meetings, I think you'll come to the same conclusion that it's a very well-run and, importantly, a nonprofit, which means all of the resources go back into the entity rather than going to shareholders. And it will keep the cost down. And one other thing, I don't think it was a coincidence. I think it was cause and effect with the community power towns going online this year. Eversource dropped its rates to match the community power rates. If you watched that happen over the year, you would agree with that.
It was also partly that they had overcharged previously and had to return a certain amount. So there was a number of things involved.
It's interesting that this letter that you guys sent, I don't mean to interrupt you. Just for the recording that people at home. Or you can do the close one.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to say also that this letter that you sent, that was the first that I had heard about this. With all the, and
I know.
It was the first time I'd heard about it. So that may say something about me and my up-to-dateness, but yes, you answered my questions. Thank you.
I'm glad you got the letter, and it's hard to get in touch with everyone, and we want to do our best on public education, but let your neighbors know.
If I could put in a call for the Barrington Energy Committee. We did not try to get funds this year. We didn't put a warrant article in the way we did last year for funds because we didn't think it would pass. And the town has agreed to extend us a certain amount of money to give us some flexibility. But this is where having a budget is so important. If we had a budget, we would have done our own mailing way in advance of the public hearings to make sure that everyone possible would have known about it, what we were planning to do, and it would have been a lot more effective than my standing at the transfer station trying to get people to stop and hand them pieces of paper. My apologies for that, but it is a call for, if you see us asking for funding, we really would like to do some useful things with that funding, if nothing else than to notify the residents of town of what we're trying to do. Jack?
So just a quick note on one of the reasons for doing this. If you've watched your electric bills over the last 3 years, you've probably seen them whipsaw from 6 cents to 20 cents to 12 cents to 22 cents. Now we're back to 8 cents. And one of the reasons for that is that Eversource is only allowed to buy power twice a year. You heard Henry mention about managing an energy portfolio. That means you buy a series of contracts that have different short and long-term terms to them. So you're playing the market to your advantage. Eversource buying only twice a year is essentially buying on the spot market. So if it's available at 8 cents now, it may very well be 22 cents in August again. So what this tries to do is buy power in a much smarter way for our benefit. That's the whole intent.
Any other questions that we could answer?
First off, thanks for being members. I've been on a few members committees myself, so I know it's a thankless job. My questions are maybe in the weeds a little bit. First one, is the coalition a licensed supplier in the state of New Hampshire?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So in order to sell electricity in New Hampshire, you have to be a licensed supplier, or do you use somebody to buy the contracts and supply the power?
So I think this is a separate category. So there's a category of competitive electric power supplier steps, yes. And that's the licensed suppliers. And this is a new category of community power aggregators. So we're in that new latter category. And I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but we are not a registered load-serving entity with the ISO New England market. We have a third party that sits in this wholesale power market on our behalf and trades power for us.
And who's that? Is that Calpine?
That's Calpine.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. The other thing is, I heard you mention, Paul, that you're moving towards perhaps some longer-term contracts rather than every 6-month cycle. Can you describe a little bit about that for us?
So it would be perhaps a commercial customer or municipal energy customer could have a 12-month rate that they could sign up for. So that's sort of a product we would offer to some of the commercial or municipal.
Okay, so the residentials will stay on that 6-month cycle?
For the time being, yes.
Right, and managing the portfolio and short-term contracts and long-term contracts and so forth.
Yeah, that was strictly commercial.
Okay, all right. Can you describe the systems that are in place? For instance, if I opt out, what keeps me opted out over the years? My understanding is you get a list from Eversource, everybody on energy service. And if you get that periodically, somebody who's opted out might be on that list from time to time and want to stay opted out. We've seen in other instances where the community aggregation groups have actually enrolled people on energy service when they probably didn't want to be, or they were in the process of signing up with another supplier. And just because of the way things overlapped, they ended up getting enrolled in an aggregation group that didn't want to. Mm-hmm. So the question is, could you describe the systems that are in place to keep somebody that is opted out until they opt in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do receive customer lists from the utilities upon launch to enroll customers, and those will be flagged on do they take power from a competitive supplier or are they net metering, and we won't enroll those customers. And then a customer might opt out. And these lists are loaded into our CRM, our customer relationship management system. And if a customer ever opts out, they're now flagged permanently in that CRM system as an opt-out customer. So then in the future, actually we do then every quarter, we get a new list from Eversource. Yeah, say we get a new list, and that's for the new customers who have returned from competitive supply to the Eversource, or who have just moved into a house or bought a house and signed up, and then we would enroll them unless they'd previously been flagged as an opt-out.
Okay, so in your customer, your CRM system, you'll cross-reference that list from Eversource and make sure that if somebody has opted out,
right,
they're opted out.
And they'll already be in the CRM, and once they're in the CRM and they've opted out, they're just flagged as an opt-out, and we would never re-enroll them.
Okay.
But just to be clear, there have been some mistakes, and some specifically with power generators. Eversource is supposed to provide us a list,
right.
And those people are supposed to be excluded from that list. There have been some mistakes where they have not been and they've been enrolled, and
right.
this has been a problem.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So these are inadvertent enrollments, and just to build on this, it's a very small number of cases, but it has happened where Eversource has not flagged a customer, and we've switched them in, and then it's been discovered a month or two later, and then they've been returned to their previous arrangement. They've been reimbursed.
Theoretically, so long as it's in your CRM, that shouldn't happen, though.
No, it shouldn't. This isn't to do with the opt-outs. This is to do with
power. If
you're on competitive supply or if you're on net metering, and we didn't know that and we switched you.
Gotcha. So Eversource is going to file for their energy service rate in mid-June. It becomes public. You guys offer your new rate that is effective August 1st, 30 days in advance. So that's like July 1st, just for the sake of things. If for some reason those folks who haven't opted out and will be taking the coalition power, but if for some reason you haven't been able to be lower than that energy service rate, do you send those customers back and re-enroll them with Eversource, or do you keep them on coalition power?
We would not disenroll those customers if that scenario were to occur.
Okay, so theoretically they'll be at a little higher price if the energy service price is lower than the coalition.
They would have, when they see the notification of the increase and realize that it's above the Eversource rate, they can de-enroll, but we won't do it automatically.
So that's a great question. So the notice of the new rate and compared to Eversource, is that something you're going to mail out every 6 months?
No, we don't mail notices on rate changes. We do have a requirement to 30 days in advance of a rate change, notice it to all of our member towns and their select boards and the like, and we make an effort to get the word out about those rate changes, but we don't do mailings every 6 months.
And the town has no budget to do that, was what you just described.
We couldn't do a mailing. Connor, what is the possibility of generating an email list for customers?
And we have that as well. You can subscribe to email notifications.
That might be the answer.
Yeah, so that would probably be the most effective solution. The town doesn't have like a customer relation program to manage that. We do have, you can enroll in updates to specific groups and meetings, and that works to some extent, but it's kind of a free module of our website, and the town hasn't.
So we will be posting these rates to the website, but this isn't pushed out.
Okay.
This is feedback we've received is we should have sort of a text notification or email notification system. So that is something that's under consideration for making sure we're doing everything we can to notify customers.
Okay, great. And then one of the other things I noticed in the literature on your website is that there's kind of an advocacy component to the coalition's existence. You talked a little bit about the net metering and some of the other renewable energy sources that, the collaboration can kind of help advance. Is there any role in the advocacy of the kind of when you put the bill up there, there's a whole host of uncontestable charges other than supply. Do you do anything to advocate for lowering those, watch those, or do you leave that up to the consumer advocate?
Mostly the latter. Mostly we leave that up to the consumer advocate. We do sometimes, our organization intervenes in these dockets at the Public Utility Commission, including sometimes the rate cases that set the distribution rates. More so we're involved on how can we improve electric vehicle charging tariff or things of that nature, as opposed to the delivery charges. That's mostly, we don't necessarily interfere with that as the consumer advocate would.
That's fine. All right. Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Anyone? Committee? Connor?
wanted to ask Henry if you could say a little bit more about the benefits of choosing a higher level of renewables in your resource mix as a customer, and how that works. How does it actually result in more renewables in the market?
Yeah, that's another good question. So, a customer could choose Clean 100, which is a 100% renewable energy option. And at the current offerings, what that is it's a way for the customer to purchase renewable energy certificates. So these are generators out there that are renewable generators, create renewable energy certificates, and you're essentially investing in those existing renewable sources if you want to choose to invest in them. That's one way to create renewable power. Some folks involved in community power and involved in the coalition are also motivated to, rather than the renewable energy certificate or the REC purchasing, actually develop local power generators in their communities, which perhaps is a way to create new renewables as opposed to just buying RECs from existing renewables. So there are a number of towns that are looking at these kinds of projects, developing one example is the city of Lebanon has a landfill, produces methane gas. They are developing a landfill gas power plant to burn that methane in a turbine and create electricity to supply to Lebanon Community Power. Some communities are looking at solar arrays. But these programs, if a town would choose to, could allow or enable a town to finance or develop local generators if they find that there's benefit or value in that as well. That'd be sort of perhaps a way to increase renewables as opposed to just buying RECs. I hope that helps.
In addition to which, towns can participate with other towns as part of these projects as members. However, if a town chooses not to, there is no fee incurred to that town.
Actually, if I could follow up, I just wanted to tease out if you could say a little bit about the environmental benefits, public health benefits of encouraging more renewables. We're not just doing it because it seemed like a neat idea or that you like renewables. How does it benefit the community or the state to have more people investing in renewables?
So our organization really doesn't take a position on whether or not a town or an individual should buy more renewable power. We create the menu of options, and any customer is free to make that choice. And many do, and many don't. But I guess the benefits of renewable power, I think, there's the local economic development benefit for those local businesses that are developing the projects and folks who are going to work in the industry. There's, air pollution benefits. There's other benefits.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for coming. Wish there was more of us here. Please tell your neighbors and friends that they're always welcome. Welcome to the Energy Committee meetings. They're welcome in participation of any. And this is actually sort of the final event before enrollment. So I don't know if there will be anything after this. But if there is, if there's a public hearing of any sort, if the town is in the process of deciding to get involved in any projects on its own or in conjunction with others, those would almost certainly end up being warrant articles about which there would be hearings. Really would enjoy input from the public. We wish that we had more contact than we do. But thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Paul, I would just echo what you just said too. I'm Rob Gibson. I'm a member of the Select Board. I'm also on the Energy Committee. And I think welcome for those who are new to the town, and for those who have been here for a while. I hope that you've noticed in recent years there's been a whole lot of effort on behalf of the town trying to inform voters and get people engaged and attending meetings. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for being online, for your questions tonight. The last election we had in town, public meeting, we had over 40% turnout. And that was a town voting public meeting. We did not have any state or federal elections. That was a record turnout Normally it's in the teens or 20%, so over 40% turned out. And that kind of engagement is really what's going to make our town strong. So thank you again for coming out.
Thank you, everyone.